How's it going, everyone? Hopefully you're doing well. Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about the collector's vehicles, a lot like I did with the tech tree kind of review guide, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to tell you if they are worth getting, where you can get them, how you unlock them, and if they are kind of new player friendly or not. So exactly the same kind of thing with that kind of tech tree review. I'll go through them all. It won't take as long because I'm just going to go through individual tanks. And there's not kind of as many to go through, and a lot of them are just going to be low tier, and I'll talk more about the higher tier ones because they're the ones that you will kind of be really investing into, whereas the lower ones aren't really, you can just buy them and then if you don't like them just sell them. So let's go ahead and get into it. Okay, so first things first, where art thou collector's vehicles? Well, you can either go to the tech tree, and then at the top here you'll see the collector's vehicles for the desired nation. Every single nation has this little tab. I believe everything, apart from the Czech tanks, because some of them won't actually have any because they haven't been removed or added. So there you go. Poland, Czechoslovakia, and that's it. They don't actually have any collector's vehicles. So there you go. But you can click up here, or you can go to the store page, and then all you have to do is go to the left-hand side here, go down to the little collector's vehicle tab, and then you can choose the nation down here. Now, the way that you unlock a collector's vehicle is by going down the tier. It can be any tier. So as long as you've got a tier 10 in one of these nations, you will have access to unlock any of the tier 10s or any of the tanks in the collector's vehicle for that nation. As you can see here, because I haven't gone down the Chinese tech tree, like so, I cannot get the 113. So I can't buy this tank because I first need to go down either the TD line, the medium tank line, or the heavy tank line. It doesn't matter which one you go down, as long as you've got to tier 10 and you've unlocked it, you don't have to buy it, you can then go and purchase the 113. Now, I'm probably going to skip through any kind of collector's vehicles that are tier 5 and below, because they're not really very expensive, and as I said at the start, you can just kind of skip through them. So you could just go, oh, let's go and buy this, and then if you don't like it, you just sell it. So it's not really kind of a financial investment, whereas 6.1 million is going to be quite a bit. And bearing in mind, these don't go on sale when everything else goes on sale as well. Which means that if there's a 30% discount at tier 10 or a 15% discount at tier 10, these will not be discounted. So since we're here, the 113, is this actually any good? This is actually a pretty nice tank. The reason why it kind of gets looked over or kind of underestimated is because it's a bit like a 430U, but now since they added field mods into the game, I think that this thing is actually better than the 430U. Now, I know it doesn't have great, penetration wise. It gets 249 standard rounds and then 340 heat. 340 heat's really, really good. And you're going to see most people just spamming gold with it because, why would you fire the normal rounds if 340 heat exists? But it does get good DPM. It gets okay accuracy. The aim time doesn't really matter too much because you can put V-stab on it and stuff like that. And overall, it's not a bad tank. Not to mention that it actually is kind of healthy with 2.3k hit points. When you compare this to a 430U, you'll see that yes, it does get a little bit more pen at the standard rounds, but that's not really going to make any difference. Especially considering that the pen rolls are RNG, so you're going to be roughly around about 250. So that is basically the same in wider tank size. You get more DPM, albeit not that much, but it's still more, better accuracy, much more gun depression, and yeah, just everything about it is just nice. When you speak about armor wise, the 113 probably gets the better hull armor overall. However, the turret armor, I would probably say still the 430U is better. But that being said, you do get a full 300 more hit points, which is, it's not quite an alpha damage shot of a tier 10, but let's say like you're fighting a 140, it's nearly a full shot from a 140. So that will come in handy quite a bit, especially considering the field mods for this. One, you can get survivability straight from the get-go, so that means that you can just put improved hardened on it, and then you get 2.5k. And then every single time that you up the field mods, you also get a little bit more health, which you don't get in the 430U. If you max out the field mods, yes, you'll then be able to get survivability, but even with survivability, you're only going to get 2.25. The survivability difference between the two is mental. And before you didn't have this with the field mods, so I think the 113 is actually now better than a 430U. Not to mention that it's also faster than it, so I don't think that the 430U is still better than the 113. It used to be, for definite, but at the moment, I think the 113 is actually really nice, and it's tremendously overlooked. As I said, the rest of these, I mean, I can even get these for free. Buy them if you want. Like that's 3,000, and that's 32,000. So it's up to you. Moving on to Italy. Right, well, what about Sweden? Well, I mean, if you want any of them, then you can buy them. Now, moving on to Japan, and ignore all of these because they're just low tier stuff. This, I know it's tier 5, but this is actually quite fun to play. If you do want to kind of have like a kind of derpy, kind of almost KV2-like tank at tier 5, it gets 60 penetration, and this is with HE. Or you can go for high explosive anti-tank, so heat rounds with 140 pen and 360 alpha. And it gets okay armor. Like, this is actually kind of a little bit of a troll tank. So if you want to just mess around in the game, then you can get this. It can be fun. But just be warned, it is a tier 5. It's going to meet tier 7s, and tier 7s will just eat you apart. Okay, now we actually move on to some nations that have a bit more. First things first, the Churchill gun carriage. This is just don't get it, okay? It's an awful tank. It's so bad, actually. I can't believe that they didn't just outright remove this thing. It gets a good gun, well, when you can get it. It does get a good gun because it gets 220 like base pen with standard rounds, and then you can use 252mm of pen, and it's APCR, so it's quite nice. However, it is slow. And when I mean slow, it gets 8 power to weight. It's painful. And you don't even really get that much DPM. It's just, I just don't see the point in it. I believe this is the same gun that's on the Carnarvon. Oh no, it's the same gun that's on the AT-15 and the Tortoise. Okay. So this gun is good, but the rest of it's awful. And when you go up over ridge lines, or you're trying to shoot someone over a slight bit of like ridge, this gets exposed and you cannot return fire. Like, imagine if you could just remove this top bit and it would just have up to the gun. That was it. It would probably be a nice tank. It'd probably be broken, actually. Yeah, just don't get it, okay? It's a waste of 1,000,000 credits. However, what's not a waste of 1,000,000 credits is the Firefly. This thing is actually quite fun to play. It gets a really, really, really good gun if you fire gold, because you get 239mm of pen. With that, you'll be able to go through basically anything. You'll be able to, hit some tier 8s and not really worry about it. Like 240 pen is more than enough to go through the majority of tier 8 vehicles, even some of the heavy tanks. I mean, okay, you're not going to just right click, left click, but it's super nice. And 171 pen, it's not too bad. Like, don't get me wrong, but the difference between the two is massive. So if you are someone that doesn't mind firing gold, then this gun is for you. It's not too fast. It does only get nearly 14 power to weight, but the gun makes up for it. And also, you don't get that much view range, but again, it's tier 6. It's just a fun little tank to play around with. And I think it's fun. Yeah, let me know what you think. Okay, and the rest of these, like the Archer, I mean, it's only 400k, but I wouldn't recommend you get it. And the Sherman 3, this is very, very similar to the M4 Sherman. It has a bit more armor, I believe. As you can see, it's a little bit more sloped than the M4 Sherman at tier 5 for the USA tech tree. And also, you do, of course, get the derp gun on it, where if you pen, you get ridiculous DPM. And even if you don't pen, you could just use 102mm of pen and you would still have a lot of DPM. So this can also be quite fun to play, but the rest of these, I just wouldn't really bother. Like, they're just low tier. If you want to get them, then try them out, but yeah. Now for the French tech tree, because you can actually get a tier 10 here and also a tier 9 here. The rest of them are kind of just whatever. I wouldn't recommend anyone get these. Like, they're pretty bad. This can actually be kind of funny. I believe this is, yeah. Wait, is this the one that has the ridiculous armor? Yeah, it has yeah. Yeah, it has 40mm of armor. This is like the micro mouse, but French. It's not as OP as the micro mouse, but it's still funny. But yeah, you can get them and test them out, but I wouldn't really recommend any of them. They can be fun for maybe a game, but that's about it. But the AMX-30B and the AMX-30, the problem is with these is that, yes, their guns aren't too bad. However, they don't get a lot of pen. And although the actual APCR as standard is nice and fast, and you get 248 pen, and it's really, really nice, you get decent DPM, especially on the AMX kind of 30B, you have this massive cupola, and it's the same thing for the AMX-30. It just struggles on ridgelines, and considering that most of World of Tanks nowadays is on a ridgeline or hold down, it's just not really worth it to pick one up for the credits that they are. Everything else about the tank is nice. Like, it gets okay power to weight, it gets okay kind of hit points wise. I think if you're going to pick one of these up, I would pick the MX-30 and not the 30B, because it's basically just the same thing, but a little bit worse, actually. Like the 30B, yes, you get monstrous DPM, and that is nice, but you still get the exact same pen as a tier 9. So you're still on 248 pen and 300 heat. And while that is enough, usually, when you meet a type 5 or something like that, it can be a little bit awkward. If we just compare the two, you'll see that the guns are pretty much exactly the same. The only difference is that it gets a little bit more DPM. And that's purely down to just a faster rate of fire. There's nothing else that changes about the guns. It is just purely it shoots a little bit quicker. The rest of this is just basically the same, but although the armor says that it's slightly better, like, if you can count that, look at the cupola. The cupola is massive compared to the compared to the AMX-30. This is a lot bigger, and it will be shot every single time. It is like an ATC tower up here. Like, what is this? And then everything else about the tank is just the same. I'll tell you what, it even gets better repair speed. I didn't know that. I mean, I suppose that the view range is really nice, because you get 410 base at tier 10, but 390 base is also really nice. I don't know. I don't see the point of getting a 30B when you could just go and get an AMX-30, but I wouldn't even bother getting either of them, to be quite honest with you. But if you like the look of them, then get them. But yeah, there's quite a bit of money to invest in, especially if you want to get both of them. Now for the USA tech tree, you get the T71DA. This is probably the best tank out of all of them, the Sherman Jumbo, because you can just go and get the derp gun on it, and then you can just go and have some fun. So yeah, you can choose the derp gun, you can choose the other gun. It doesn't really matter. This is actually quite a nice tank to play. Is it better though than the Easy 8 that you get at tier 6? I don't know. The armor wise is definitely better, but you get the same kind of thing. Like, although the armor is better, you're just going to get shot by gold anyway, so what's the real point of it? You lose some mobility in comparison to it. I don't know. Overall, I'd say I like this tank more, because when you do get in top tier games, you can kind of bounce a lot more than with the Easy 8. So I would say that it's better, but it's down to personal preference at the end of the day. And of course, you can get the Seal Clubber's Dream, the T67. Yeah, why did they keep that in the game? And now moving on to the Russian tech tree, the T62A. Also the KV-13. I wouldn't recommend you get the KV-13 just because there's better tech tree tanks, to be quite honest. The A43 is much better than the KV-13. And the KV-85, although it's great, I still think that the KV-1S might be better, just because it gets a little bit better mobility. But you can stick a 122 on this. So this is really like the old KV-1S, if anyone remembers that. You stick the 122 on it, it gets a monstrous reload, and you get no DPM, but you get 390 alpha. But the T62A, is it better than the 140? No. It's just not. Not after the 140 got a buff. Once the 140 got a buff, this thing then got left behind again. When the 140 was kind of, not as well armored as it is now, because it got buffed a good few patches ago, like maybe even a few years ago, actually. I can't remember, but it was a while ago that it got buffed. And when it did, this thing just became even more obsolete than it already is. You get exactly the same gun as a 140. Everything else is the same pretty much, but The 140 is faster, and this is just, I don't know, it's just not worth it when you could just go and get a 140. So this isn't worth it, okay? This isn't worth it at all. And finally, the German collector's vehicles. Jagdpanther 2, this can be quite fun. It's better than a Ferdinand, I'll give you that. Like, mind you, pretty much anything is better than a Ferdinand. It does get a nice gun, because you can get the exactly same top gun as the Ferdinand, and also you can put it on the Jagdtiger. But it is the top gun on the Ferdinand, and the exact same thing is for the Jagdpanther 2. It's not a bad tank, okay? If you really like TDs, then this is not a bad option. But if you don't really play TDs, then I wouldn't recommend you waste 2.5 million on this, because it's just not really worth it. But for those of you that do, this is actually not bad. You can get around the place pretty quickly at 55. It doesn't get great top speed, or sorry, great power to weight, but overall, this isn't a bad tank. Also, the traverse speed on this, I think, is not that bad. Yeah, 39 traverse. So you can actually outturn quite a few tanks, especially once you get crew skills and stuff like that on it. The VK3001D. I remember when this thing was still in the tech tree, and this is actually, this is probably one of my favourite tanks in the game. I loved this thing when it was in the tech tree, and I still do love it, but I don't really like playing lower tier. It gets okay hit points, it gets stupidly troll armor. Like, people will just shoot at your hull and it'll just ricochet. It's super nice. It doesn't matter about the turret, because half the time they just hit the pyramid. I mean, it looks like a pyramid, right? Sort of. I mean, if you ignore that it's actually a rectangle. But overall, this tank is quite nice. It gets 2k DPM at tier 6, which is stupidly good. And although, yes, it's not got great alpha, you fire every 4 seconds. So you put crew skills on that and equipment, and you're super, super good. Bombs it around at 60, 21 pound to weight. This thing's quite nice. With 370 view range as well. So, yeah, I do quite like this vehicle. This is quite a fun one to actually pick up. For 900k credits, it's on that kind of verge where you could just buy it, and then even if it's bad, you can sell it, or you don't like it, you could sell it. So, I don't know. I recommend everyone to try this tank, because it is quite fun to play. The rest of these I don't really recommend, because the toaster is just not really... I don't know why you would play the toaster, to be quite honest. It gets a good gun, but then that's it. Like, that's literally it. That's the only reason why you would play that. I mean, you could play it just to have a laugh, but that's about it. And the Panzer 3-4, it's not that good, but it's just your kind of bog standard tier 5. And the rest of these are just low tier, so you could pick them up if you really want to. So that has been all the collector's vehicles. It wasn't as long as the tech tree review, which is good. Because otherwise I would have been sitting here for another 5 hours editing it. Hopefully you did enjoy. If you did, then make sure to leave a like and subscribe, as it does all help me out greatly. And let me know if you have got any collector's vehicles. Most of them aren't really worth it for the higher tiers, apart from maybe like the 113. But then you also get the 5A, so that's also really, really nice. So yeah, let me know. I'll see you all in the next one.